It was actually, Yvonne, exactly what I was expecting. The probation department had recommended a sentence of 20 years. Of course, the prosecutors wanted a much longer sentence. They wanted to really punish her. They wanted 30 to 55 years. You know, her team wanted to get her out of jail in 4 years. But the judge felt that a 20-year sentence was needed for the absolute horrible things that she had put these young girls through.
Ghislaine Maxwell has not offered much in the way of an apology for her actions. How are survivors reacting?
Well, I think there's a sense of closure finally in this case. I mean, it's been a long, long road over many decades of abuse for these girls who have had to live with this. There was very powerful impact statements made in court yesterday here in New York by two of the victims who had testified and a few others. And they talked over the fact about how their lives were ruined. One of them talked about being in a dungeon of hell. Another girl who's now a woman talked about how she had attempted to take her life twice and had to try to physically escape from Jeffrey Epstein's island. It was very, very difficult for these women to speak. And I think for the judge to hear, as she pointed out, the pain and anguish of these women talking about, you know, the impacts that it's had on their lives was overwhelming.
She was convicted of 5 of the 6 charges she faced, yet continues to maintain her innocence, and it's expected that she will appeal.
Well, I think there's definitely going to be an appeal. There was a wrinkle at the end of the criminal trial. We found out back in December when one of the jurors came forward and said that he had been a victim of sexual abuse and had not clearly defined that on the jury questionnaire. So that is something that it's possible Ghislaine's lawyers may take to an appeals court. However, the judge in this case, Allison Nathan, had a hearing specifically about that and found that it did not impact the juror's decision.
And in court, Ghislaine Maxwell continued to pin the blame on Jeffrey Epstein, saying he should have been the one standing before the accusers. What else did she have to say?
I mean, she, for the very first time, we heard her speak in court. I think it was a mistake on her part that she didn't come forward and speak during the criminal trial. It's quite possible that she might have gained some sympathy from the jurors by talking about her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and how she also claimed to be a victim of his. But, you know, in court yesterday, she did, for the first time, talk about the pain that these girls had gone through. And she talked about the fact that meeting Jeffrey was absolutely the worst mistake of her life.
Yet, Ghislaine Maxwell is the only person formally held to account for the crimes perpetuated. Is it likely to remain that way?
Well, I think these women would like to see some of the rich and powerful men that were associates of Jeffrey Epstein brought, to justice here. I think that would be a very long road for the prosecution. And the question, that still remains at this hour is whether Ghislaine Maxwell will ever sit down with prosecutors and really tell them who else was involved in this and talk about what she knows. She obviously is the only one now at the heart of this who is still alive after Jeffrey Epstein took his life behind bars. And she has the ability to talk specifically to prosecutors about other men in this case. Whether she will do that in an attempt to lessen her 20-year sentence remains to be seen at this point.
And Barry, a lot has been said about her background and how that could have contributed to some of her actions, but certainly no excuse for the horrible crimes committed.
No, without question. As I wrote in my book, she was an absolute predator and partner in crime to Jeffrey Epstein. And through her trial, all her team did was attempt to re-victimize the victims. She never talked, during trial about her difficult upbringing, about her abusive father. None of that was there. This all came up much later before sentencing.
Barra Levine, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Yvonne.